So one of the things that I've noticed over the years on television is the predominance of cookery programmes. And it seems that every generation has had cookery programmes on TV, whether it was Fanny Craddock in me parents' day, or Jamie Oliver, or MasterChef, or there's loads. There's so many that you can mention. And maybe they're popular because cookery programmes are something that we can join in with as well and see what they're doing and maybe try it out for ourselves. And they'll give recipes, won't they? Often during the show, they'll be giving out the recipe, and no matter what we're cooking up, then every recipe, of course, has some key ingredients. And it's simply not possible to make that thing without those key ingredients. So you won't be too impressed by this, I'm sure, but one of my favourites is beans on toast. Now, I can tell you for certain that you simply can't make beans on toast without beans and without bread. Another of my favourites is vegetable soup, and in the same way, you just can't really make vegetable soup without the vegetables. And so when we look at any recipe for anything that we're cooking up, there are key ingredients, and those key ingredients make that thing possible. Now, that's not just true of cookery, it's also true about many of the things that we cook up in our life, the things that we generate and create in our life. And one of the questions I'm often interested in with the people that I see in my office is to ask them what the recipe is for the thing that's in their life at the moment that they don't want anymore. So it might be, what's your recipe for your particular version of depression? What's your recipe for your particular version of anxiety? So what are the key ingredients that are essential to bringing that about? And it's a really interesting question because, like I say, it's what's the recipe for your particular form of depression? It's what's the recipe for your anxiety, because everyone's is a little bit different. But when people share what the recipe is for the thing that they don't want, it allows a focus, it allows a noticing on some of the things that we choose to do that actually keep us in the state that we don't want to be in. So people might respond with things like, well, one of the things that's in my recipe for depression is just to never open the curtains. I'll wake up every morning and I simply won't open the curtains. And that provides a clue then as to something small that might just change something a little bit. Something that we can do a little bit different to break that pattern that is leading us to where we don't want to be. And people come up with all sorts of answers, of course, in terms of what are the ingredients in their life that are part of their particular recipe for depression or anxiety or whatever it happens to be for that person. And in coming up with that recipe, in designing that recipe, as we kind of think back on it, what are the ingredients here? We get a certain authority, we get a certain power, because we realise that there are actually things that we're doing that are getting in our own way. There are things that we're doing or thinking which are actually part of the recipe, which are ensuring that the thing that comes out of the oven isn't something that we want, but something that we don't want. And in discovering what the key ingredients are in that recipe, like with the example before about part of my recipe for depression is to keep the curtains closed even during daylight. That makes me feel miserable. Well, we can come to some conclusions, can't we, about what we can do different. And by the same token, once we've had a look at what the recipe is for feeling low, we can ask a similar question about what if we wanted to cook something different? What if we wanted to cook something that made us feel good? What are the things that make us feel good. And when we think of a recipe for that, we can come up with some interesting ingredients as well. People might say, in terms of my particular recipe for feeling good, it would be being around the people that I like. Or it would be just chilling and putting a box set on and having a nice old binge watch. Or it would be having a deep bath. Everyone's answers are different. Everyone's recipe is different because we're all different. But once we start looking at what we're cooking up through the lens of the recipe, we can realise that we do have some power to change the recipe at times. So we can look at what the ingredients are and make a fresh decision and say, I'm actually going to change the ingredients because I don't want that particular dish anymore. I want to cook up a different dish. And in order to cook up a different dish, it requires different ingredients. It requires the kind of ingredients that make me feel good about myself, rather than the kind of ingredients that are getting in my way. So if you've enjoyed the episode, feel free to share it about. Subscribe as well, wherever you get your podcasts. You can even leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts, because that would be good too. That would really help, actually, if you'd be willing to do that. And if you'd like to work with me, Alun Parry, I'm from the Liverpool Psychotherapy practice on Rodney Street in Liverpool, and you can find all about me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.